Hey Sugar Geeks, it's almost summertime and you know what that means? It's strawberry season. And what better dessert to incorporate strawberries than a strawberry shortcake cake? It's coming up next on the Sugar Geek Show. So the cake of the month for June is strawberry shortcake cake, and so by that I mean a layer cake. I have done a strawberry shortcake post that's made with biscuits and fresh strawberries and whipped cream, but this is not that. This is a cake. The first thing we need to do is to make the cake in the strawberry shortcake. We are using my moist vanilla cake recipe. You could use like white velvet, white cake, sponge cake. I mean, it's really open to interpretation, but to me, shortcake is a very moist and fluffy vanilla cake. For my vanilla cake, we use something called the reverse creaming method. So that means we're gonna take our milk, divide it in half, and we're gonna put the oil in with the first measurement of milk, and then we're gonna put the eggs and the vanilla in the second measurement of milk, and we're gonna set those aside. Then we're gonna take our flour, our sugar, baking powder, baking soda, salt, and the butter, and put it in the stand mixer, and we're going to mix that until it resembles a coarse sand. And what we're doing is we're coating all of the flour with butter. It's kind of like making a shortbread or like a pie crust, but with cake. So this gives the texture of the cake a very soft, fluffy, super fine texture. It's so delicious. Once we have our crumbly texture, we're gonna add that milk and oil mixture that we made earlier and mix this for 2 full minutes. And you're gonna be like, oh my God, Liz, we're over mixing the cake. And I promise you, we are not over mixing it. We are incorporating air, we are developing some structure, and we're just making sure the cake is that perfect texture. Just mix for that 2 full minutes. You want it to be nice and fluffy. When we're making cake, we really want to make sure we're being super accurate. So I'm measuring all of my ingredients with a scale, and I'm making sure that all of my ingredients are room temperature. So imagine your room is about 70 degrees, and that's about how warm you want your butter, your milk, your eggs. So it's almost like it's slightly warm. And that's gonna make sure that everything blends together and makes a beautiful emulsion, AKA a soft and fluffy cake. You can see our batter has completely changed. Air has been incorporated in it. It's super light and fluffy. And now all we have to do is just drizzle in that last bit of milk and egg mixture. This is going to set the texture, set the structure, and then stop mixing. You don't need to mix anymore. Now we're gonna divide this cake batter into 2 pans lined with cake goop, which is my homemade pan release, or you can use whatever type of pan release you want. And I weigh my cake pans just to kind of make sure that my layers are even because we are going to tort these cakes later. You can totally use a different size cake pan if you want. I would not suggest using a 6-inch pan. If you're making a strawberry shortcake cake, it's gonna get very, very tall, but you could do 10 inches. You can make multiple small 6-inch cakes. Just remember, different size cakes, different size baking time. Different size baking times? Once you can tap the top of your cake and it bounces back or a toothpick comes out from the center cleanly, your cakes are done baking. Take them out of the oven. I let mine cool down for about 10 minutes or so before flipping them out onto a cooling rack. Then I let them cool the rest of the way before I frost them. If you're impatient like I am and you want to get this cake party going right away, throw them into the freezer for about an hour and then they will be ready to go. While your cakes are cooling down, you can start making your whipped cream. I'm using my stabilized whipped cream recipe that uses gelatin. Can I use something besides gelatin? Yes, you can. If you go to my stabilized whipped cream recipe, I have several ways to make stabilized whipped cream. I just like using gelatin. You can get that recipe right here. So to make stabilized whipped cream, the first thing we're gonna do is take our gelatin and sprinkle it over the top of our cold water and let that absorb for about 5 minutes. Then you wanna pop that into the microwave for about 30 seconds until the gelatin is fully melted, and you know it's melted because it's nice and clear and you don't see any granules of gelatin anymore. Add your cream to the gelatin. This is really important because it helps the gelatin incorporate into the whipped cream mixture later. If you don't add that cream, then you'll get like little stringy bits of gelatin in your whipped cream, and that's not good. Set that aside, let it cool down. Now we're gonna start whipping our whipped cream. I just start on medium and wait until it just starts to get a little bit thick. You know, it just starts to get a little bit of air worked in there. And then I add in my powdered sugar. And we're gonna keep mixing until you start seeing little ridges forming in the top of the whipped cream. And then we're going to drizzle in our gelatin mixture as we're mixing on medium. And you'll just see that the whipped cream just starts to get thicker and thicker. And when it gets to the point where it's starting to hold its shape and it's at a stiff peak, you wanna stop. Try not to overmix your whipped cream to the point where it becomes butter, because there's no coming back from that. You just have butter. Now it's time to layer our strawberry shortcake cake. First thing we need is some strawberries, ideally ones that are in season. In Oregon, our strawberry season is between June and July. That's when we can go out into the fields and pick the freshest, juiciest, most delicious strawberries. My favorite are hood berries. Yes, they are from the hood, the Pacific Northwest hood, and they're delicious. They're so good. So after you get your berries, you want to slice them, take off the top, of course. I don't add anything to them. You could add some sugar if you wanted to, but mine are already sweet enough, just like me. Oh, Liz, you're so funny. Thank you, I know. Okay, so now that our berries are sliced, you wanna tort our vanilla cake layers in half. I just use my serrated bread knife and I just kind of eyeball putting my knife between the top and the bottom, like somewhere in the middle, slightly cutting in and working my way to the center. If you need more information on how to frost and decorate your cake and all of these like steps from a professional level, I happen to have a tutorial right here that you can check out. So now that our layers are torted in half, we can go ahead and place the first layer onto our cake plate. And then I like to put a little bit of whipped cream on top just so that the berries don't like sink down, like all of the juices like sink down into the cake. And then we put a nice even layer of strawberries, more whipped cream on top, and then our next layer of cake. And repeat that process 2 more times and then end up with the last layer on top. If you were making this cake for a wedding or a party or any day that was like before the day you're gonna eat it, you might wanna frost the whole cake on the outside, like seal in all of that moisture. But if you're eating this the day of, you don't need to like frost the outsides or anything like that. The layers of vanilla cake will start to dry out if you put it in the refrigerator and it's not frosted on the outside. If you do have whipped cream on the outside, you could definitely refrigerate it overnight with no problem. You could even freeze it if you wanted to make it ahead of time and then defrost it in the refrigerator for 24 hours before serving. My cake was extremely soft when I was cutting it, which was delicious, but a little bit messy. So the second cake I made, I actually froze it in the freezer for about an hour, and that helped hold it all together for slicing, if you care about pretty pictures like I do. And then I added some more whipped cream on top with some more fresh berries, and we're done. It's time to eat. So fire up the barbecue, bring out the cake. All right, time to taste this cake. Oh yeah. This is like childhood to me. Every summer, for as long as I could remember growing up, we always would have strawberry shortcake at the strawberry festival. And I thought that was normal and that every state had a strawberry festival. And I found out that it was like not as common. It's for states that have strawberries for sure. But we always had giant vanilla cake with fresh strawberries and whipped cream. And everybody who showed up to the festival got a slice. This is exactly what it tastes like. Super soft, so delicious. So that's it, guys. That is how you make a strawberry shortcake cake. Hopefully you enjoyed this recipe and tutorial. If you want to hit that subscribe button down below, don't forget to hit that bell so you get notifications every time we come out with a new recipe. And I will see you guys next week. Bye. This one's mine though.